Ironman Mont Tremblant 70.3 2022. This one's going to be a little bit different. It is a pro race, so let's get into it. Pre-race info, this is all the typical stuff. Swimming before, I believe it is allowed, but make sure you check that. Athlete briefings for you. The athlete check-ins are on Saturday. Same with the mandatory bike check-in. I don't know about your race briefing. Couldn't find any information on it. Make sure you check the race site for specific pro time, the pro meeting. So they'll list it. Just make sure you double check it. Also, if you have someone going with you, make sure they are checking that for you so you don't have to double back when you do check in. That way you can get everything done at the same time. Saturday, I don't know if you have to wear your timing chip for bike check-in. Make sure you ask. I know that's been a policy in the States. I do not know about Canada. Their athlete guide is not up yet. You do have to attend one race briefing, and since you are a pro this year, you're going to have to attend the pro meeting instead. Race day starts at 7 a.m. It's a little bit different. You are a pro, so you're starting right at the front. T1, 5:15 to 6:30, and it closes there. So you're going to have about a 30-minute gap in between when transition closes and the swim start. You have a little bit of a walk to do from the transition, and we'll see that on the next slide here. This is the transition area right through here, and you do have to walk a little bit of ways out to that swim start. It is up a hill as well, and during this time, you know, the adrenaline's going to be pumping the whole time. It's a little bit of a walk, and there's a lot of hanging out beforehand. It's really easy to get suckered into a whole lot of nothing when you're at this spot, and then before you know it, the race starts and you haven't warmed up or anything. So I highly encourage you to be doing some warm-ups, some dynamics, some things like that. It's okay to talk to people, but make sure you are doing some stuff that's going to allow you to start off with a bang in this race, because you are going to need it. We'll talk about that in a second. So race day info, I know the transition closes at 6:30. I don't know about body marking, so that's something you're going to need to ask. Aid stations on the bike are about every 16 kilometers or so, or 1 to 1.5 kilometers on the run, which means that you might be able to skip an aid station or two if absolutely necessary. But also, if you're overheating, know that they're going to come pretty quickly on this course. I'm going to assume it's everything listed here. There was a couple of offerings that were provided on that race website, but the official guide, again, has not been out, so I'm going to assume that this is pretty much the standard out here on race day. If you are going to substitute some of your fuel with that Morton gel, just be aware of the calorie content and the nutrients that are in those gels. Qualifying, I'm also assuming there's only going to be 2 slots available. This is on the bottom right here. You can see a lot of 70.3s that are listed throughout here. A lot of them have 1 or 2 pro men and pro women. So if you want to qualify, then you got to get top 2 here. The swim. So let's get into it. So at the start, it's really easy to blow the start up and just totally pay for it later on. It's going to be a fast start, I'm not going to lie to you. The area right through here, typically what happens is you're going to swim through like a boat channel. So there's going to be boats parked on one side, boats parked on the other right at the very beginning of this. I don't know if they're going to remove one side for you or push them all out to a different location, but that is how it's been in years past. With that, it's a little difficult to sight. It's super straightforward, but for whatever reason on the way out, it's just a little bit more difficult to sight than on the way back in. But going back to the things, coming right off the gun, the start is going to be hot. It's going to be very, very technical. You're going to be surrounded by swimmers that know what they're doing and who are actively going to be fighting for that position. Since we are not in the age group field anymore, these spots matter. It's just like a bike race with all the drafting and things associated with that, right? So for those first couple of buoys, the pace is going to be real high, and I encourage you to kind of go there, but know your limits, okay? It's going to be important for you to kind of hang on to that front group as much as possible without blowing up. So if there's a split that happens in between the group in front of you and your group, so if you're in the second group, you're going to have to make a decision pretty fast if you do want to jump up to that front group? Is it worth it for you? And if that front group is just slowly sliding away and you're about halfway through the swim, right, you're gonna have to make a calculated decision. If you're gonna have to increase that effort level, is that going to be worth it for later on, for maybe a minute or two down the road? So that's gonna be a personal decision that you're gonna have to make. But I am going to assume that you're going to be able to be there at least for the first half on the way out. The goal on this swim in a perfect scenario is going to be to stay within those first two groups. I know this is your first pro race, and I want you to get as much experience as possible with that. So the goal here on this swim is to stay within those first two groups. You're going to want to work with the pack here, but I don't want you to force the work. You shouldn't have to prove to others how good you are. The athlete that does that on the swim is going to be the athlete that pays the price later, even if it's on the swim, on the bike, on the run. That's how you don't win races. You don't prove how good you are right at the beginning. You prove that at the end. So because everyone knows where they are, you will be able to work with other people, but do not do the lion's share of the work unless you are trying to make the jump up to that big group. If there is a highly selected first group, maybe 4 or less people, and they're going away from a huge pack, right? What will typically happen is there will be a person or two in that pack behind that does want to make the bridge, and there will be people that go with you, but if they don't come up and share some of that workload with you, then in my opinion, you probably will be better off just sliding back to that bigger group, because you can kind of slot in and kind of disappear for a little while, but just get a free ride. You are going to want to avoid huge bursts during this swim, again, unless you're making a calculated decision to jump up to that front group or to come out of the water on top. Current temps in the 60s right now, and there is a long transition, and you can see that swim exit here, and you do have to run a little bit to that transition area, which is located a little off to the right here where my cursor is. Kind of cut that off, but that is going to be the swim in a nutshell. It's a lake swim, so the choppier water is going to be further out here, and speaking chop real fast, the wind will kind of roll off the mountains right here, so the further you get out, the bigger the waves will get. It's not uncommon for it to be really choppy out here, and if that's the case, I would highly suggest that you, as your individual strength is the swim, I would encourage you to kind of push the pace a little bit, or just to kind of maintain with some of those other athletes that are in that front group. If the water does get a little out of control here, that's going to be your bread and butter right there. So the bike is a 1-loop course, right? You can see the 8 stations are listed right through here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, 16, 32, 53, and 73 Ks out on course. A unique course. There are 3 turnaround points over here, even though it is a 1-loop course. The first, the bike is 29, let's call it 3,000 feet of climbing. And there is a tendency to chomp some of those early rollers and stand. Don't do that. Do not do that. You're going to have to carry your speed in certain spots, but we'll talk about more specifics in a second. Tension on your chain pretty much at all times. There is wind conditions that will influence things, and the next page is going to help us out a little bit more. So going off to you can see this is your best bike split power numbers that you should be targeting pretty easily right throughout here. A couple of hot points out on course. These red markers, these are no pass zones. They will be labeled, they will be marked, so make sure that you know what's happening around you, and if you do think you are going to pass an individual, you need to fix that out on course. This is an example of the best bike split numbers that you will see. This is yours if you look it up in your Training Peaks race profile right here, and this is a quick breakdown of the race course for sure. So this first orange section right through here, this, let's call it 6 to 8 miles right here, you're going to want to see here, watch the group and see what's happening. If there is 1 or 2 people that are going up the road and they look really strong, again, just like the swim, you're going to have to make a judgment call with these numbers in mind. Okay, it's going to be a theme over the course of the bike. You're going to want to stay in groups as much as possible, especially early on, and especially for this whole first section right through here. So this section, this yellow section, is this long highway stretch right through here, right? Probably from this 117 number all the way down to that turnaround point right through there. During this section, speeds are going to be high, and it's going to be really easy to carry those speeds. If you're not careful, you're going to overdo it. This happens a lot. This happens a lot. First spot is to overdo it right through this first major hill right here. Second, and I would probably argue the most common area to overdo things on this course, is right through here. You typically will have a head to crosswind. If you do have a tailwind, you can see on the map right here, it is a little windy, so you're going to have winds coming in your face at some point over the course of the way out. That's just going to be the scenario. So I put a little exclamation point over here. Just be careful right through here. If other people want to do that work for you, let them do the work here. It's probably going to be one of the only areas I'm going to say that. So let them do the work here and just try to stay in those groups as best as possible, and know the bike penalties, which are on this page. And I'm going to be going back and forth here, so feel free to pause it or just kind of roll with me for a little bit. So you do have to be 6 bike lengths apart. So you do have to keep that 6 bike lengths apart. So if you do enter less than that 6 bike lengths from the athlete in front of you, you will have to pass that person. So that's another area that we haven't talked about, which are the racing dynamics from that professional race. Things will be strung out, okay? So it's very common for the newbie out on course to, again, prove themselves on race day. And what will happen is you will enter that drafting zone from the person in front of you, and you will have probably 6 or 7 athletes in front of them. So because of that, you will have to pass that person and then repeatedly everyone else in that line, because you have entered that echelon, right? And failure to pass athletes will result in a penalty that you will have to serve. So it's always important to know what's going on in front of you, and if you really do want to pass, you have to really take a look at things and say, do I really want that right now? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. Okay, don't do it. Even if the front group is going up the road, if you don't realistically think you can avoid the draft and get out in front of that person or group in front of you, then your best bet is just to kind of hang on and let the people kind of rotate and kind of pull some turns with them and battle it back up to that front group later on. After you do make that turnaround, coming right through here, then things are going to be very, very challenging, at least usually right through here. And I've put some pretzels out through here, so make sure you're eating all throughout here. Again, another common thing to forget up until this turnaround point is to fuel. So make sure you're doing that. On the way back from that highway, all the way down through this little area right here, again, you'll still be in fast mode, and it's not uncommon to see speeds dropping throughout this point right through here, right? You'll still see powers pretty high, but speed will be lower than what it was on the way out during this caution section right through here. Another area to overdo it right through here, and what typically puts the icing on the cake for most athletes, is the big hill coming back up over the water right through here, okay? Very common for athletes to blow up at this point, and if they don't, this will kind of set them over the edge, but they can typically survive till about this turnaround point right here, maybe mile 40 right through there, before the wheels totally come off the chain right through there. So as you're coming back to this big hill right here, watch what everyone's doing. If there are a couple of moves and you feel like you can go with them, go. Again, the whole reason we're out here is to get pro experience and to learn from our mistakes and to see how you stack up with other people. Head back into town, there will be another turnaround right through here, and then this is going to be where the most separation happens out on course if you guys are bunched together. Big caveat right through there. So we have about a 10, maybe a 13-mile stretch right through here where it's going to be easy to put some time into people. It's going to be easy to lose a lot of time on people. But again, it's only 12 miles, so if you're going at a good little clip and someone's just slowly sliding away from it, just kind of let them do that and watch your numbers. If you've been high throughout the day, this is a time where if you're starting to feel some things in your legs and just you're unsure if you're going to be able to carry it all the way in, watch the numbers and just bring it back down to that. last area right through here, or second to last area that I have a risk versus reward stamp right through here is the turner, or that turn on the transition is right through here. You're gonna blow past that and you're gonna actually go up pretty much the whole way. It is a bunch of uphill rollers, right? So you're gonna go up and then you feel like you're going down and then you just go up again and again and again and again. Very, very, very tough right through here, especially mentally, because you have to go past the transition area. You feel like you're almost done, but in reality, that's when the work is starting. So you can see that the transition area is right about here where my cursor is. So you have a good chunk of change to go past that transition and then back down. Just because you're going down, I probably should have put this box further out, but just because you're going down, I mean, again, you're going through these rolling sections again, so unfortunately you are going to have to work a little bit harder than you want to right through here. Especially you can see that some of these cow horns right through here simulated downhill, but actually not. You're gonna have to save some stuff for that finish line, even though it is downhill. When you are coming back down, probably around this section right through here, some of the roads are a bit mossy, so if it is damp out there, make sure you're watching the road and staying in control of the bike. That's why I have a do you need to push some of these sections right through here. If it is rainy, watch what's going on as you're going up. Very common for athletes to crash going down here and wiping out some people while they're going uphill. So again, make sure you're watching what's happening and always having your head on a swivel during this section. Probably one of the most dangerous sections out on course right through here, but it is a fun one. There's lots of people here. Usually the crowd is really, really fun, so enjoy that through there. These are some of the penalties like we talked about before. Run course. It's one loop, 713 feet of gain. Should have put a map here, but I didn't. It's a highly, highly mixed terrain right through here. What is really common out here is to have a flying start. You're going to be running right next to the lake right through here, and then you're going to make a left-hand turn away from the lake, and you're going to kind of go up these steeper inclines up here. And you can see it comes once, it comes twice, and then 3, 4. It just doesn't stop coming. So this highly mixed terrain explodes people's legs, especially this last major sharp hill coming out of the first couple of miles right through here, conveniently located at mile 2. So this is kind of the opposite of that Lake Placid start. Lake Placid's pretty gradually downhill, flat, kind of friendly. This is the opposite of that. This is kind of nasty. This is in your face. This is battling terrain. This is very akin to running in that Northern Virginia area, where there's hills and they just come again and again and again. And ordinarily this isn't a problem, but because you have so many of the miles and the swim effort that you've done before already in your system, these hills are going to feel a lot worse than they should or want to be. So again, watch the power, watch your targets out there, and just always be aware of what's happening. The reason some of the pro racing is very difficult or so much harder than age group racing is because you're not only having to keep track of what's going on with you and your nutrition, your heart rate, battling your system and making sure you're making the necessary adjustments, but you're also having to do extra things like keeping an eye on other people, what's going on in front of you, behind you, can you bridge up to someone else. And the run, I know there's all kinds of data out there that you can draft and all that other stuff if you're running on someone's hip, but the run, I would argue, is still pretty individual. It's not like the bike where you can get a team of 7 to 8 people and just kind of hammer the course, right? That run, highly individual, so watch your targets, watch your numbers that you've been given in your Training Peaks race file, and then go from there, just like we did on the bike. Right, you're going to be watching what other people are doing and trying to mix it up with them, but you're going to have to keep an eye on these numbers as well. So it's just creating another element or two from that race day on the bike and the run. Again, some of these guidelines, watch your pace, watch your power early on. You can forget about fueling very, very easily, and it's really common for athletes to get to that mile 4 mark right at the top of this hill right through here, and then remembering that they do need to fuel, and by that point it's too late. It's too late to start fueling here. So watch your targets, but know what others are doing, and be careful with your surges on these uphills. Power is going to be a huge, huge player in this run success right through here, and we'll talk more individually about what else we can do to maximize our potential on race day. I hope you enjoy your first pro race, James.